Delta College Impact. I'm Roger Waller, your host for today's program. On today's show, we're going to be talking about the Mexican Heritage Center. And a lot of you probably aren't familiar with it, and I know I'm not as familiar as I'm going to be after our program today. And joining me on the first half of the program, we have two Delta College employees and two people involved with the Mexican Heritage Center. On my immediate left is Richard Rios, a longtime instructor here at Delta College, and at Richard's left is Manuel Payan, another longtime Delta employee. Richard, let me start with you and just say that, you know, your career here at Delta is not really art-oriented, so you might tell the audience a little bit about what you do in normal life here at Delta.
Well, I began as an ethnic studies instructor in 1972 and taught all kinds of courses on Mexican and Chicano culture and history. Somehow I never managed to work my way into the art department because that's where my specialty was, in art. I have a master's degree in art from California College of Arts and Crafts. But over the years, you know, even though I haven't been teaching art here, it's been my first love, and I keep painting, drawing, and working in art. Now, you know, somehow I've become a full-time English instructor, which, you know, has been another secret love of mine, writing, poetry, literature, and so on.
I think it's great because you have two master's degrees, and not just one, and that you have such an interesting overlap because you have both the poetry end as well as the visual arts that you've worked with. And that, I think, blends in well with the Mexican Heritage Center, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that next. But Manuel, I wanted to talk to you because we might as well talk about you're a classified professional here at Delta College, but what's your connection with the Mexican Heritage Center?
Well, when I became president of the Hispanic Employees Association here at Delta, the Artistas del Valle would always donate their art for an art auction. And so that's how I became involved. And through that, I also went back to school, taking some history of art classes and other art classes like that. So I got into photography now, but with Richard and Raul Mora and Rodolfo Garcia, they've been like mentors to me, and that's how my connection with the Mexican Heritage Center has
And I think
come
it's
about.
great because a lot of times we think that, gee, the people who are involved in this are professional artists, but you are taking your interest in the area and of saying, hey, I'm going to commit myself and commit my time and effort to help make the center a success.
Yes, and that's what's so great about it is that you don't have to be an artist. You know, everybody is welcome who wants to bring forth and make this Mexican Heritage Center grow, not only for here at Delta College, but throughout the community and San Joaquin Valley here.
Mm-hmm. And I know, Richard, one of the things is that the Mexican Heritage Museum is approximately a couple of years old. And a few years ago, what was the catalyst that all of a sudden said, hey guys, let's get together and we're going to have a Mexican Heritage Center?
Manuel just referred to Artistas del Valle, and Artistas del Valle is a name that a group of us Hispanic or Chicano artists gave ourselves a few years back. Many of us met here at Delta College, in fact, the artists who now are very active in the center, and Manuel named a few. We came together because we had a mutual interest in art back in the early 70s. And we also came together because many of us were educators at that time. Some of us were. And, you know, there was a need for exhibiting Hispanic art, or whatever you want to call it, especially for some of the ethnic events like Cinco de Mayo, the 60th of September, or the Day of the Dead, and so on. So we began organizing exhibits, and we had many exhibits here at Delta College. When we had our original gallery here, our first gallery here, we had annual exhibits, and so plus we worked together all these years and went from place to place, you know, never had a permanent home. We showed for years at the Ellen Short Gallery, and then we had another building somewhere downtown where we showed. We all felt the need for a permanent home, a permanent place. And that's why a couple of years ago we came together to form the Mexican Heritage Center.
And I guess that's really one of the things when you start to think about it is that there is more than just art. And as you start to say what's going to be involved in the Heritage Center, what were some of those areas that you said?
We all felt the need to define art in its broadest possible sense. And therefore, you know, the center exhibits art, visual art, sculpture, paintings, ceramics, and whatever. But we always have series of ongoing workshops. We have poetry readings. We have folklore dance concerts. And so all year round, we're offering cultural events, all designed to teach people about the beauty and the importance of Mexican culture.
And I know, Manuel, I guess one of the things is to sit there and think, how are we going to do outreach into the community too? Because a lot of times it isn't just opening up a door and saying, come on by. What sort of other activities does the center get involved with in the community?
In fact, we're going to have a show coming up, excuse me, the Day of the Dead show. And it's like an outreach program we have for the elementary school kids, the high school kids. They come on school field trips. And and we have symposiums on what is the Day of the Dead.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have an outreach program, and not only for the school kids, but here at Delta and throughout the community.
One of the things I think at the end of the program, those of you who are saying now, hey, how do I follow up on this and how do I get more information? We're going to have the address and phone number at the end of our program that's going to give you that contact information. So get those pencils and papers ready, because we'll be back to give you how to find out to do some of the visitations and where the center is located. Now, Richard, when you start to think about artists who might want to exhibit their work, what's the process that you go through? Or is it something where you say, we are calling for different pieces of art?
Yeah, we don't really have at this point, I think, any specific process. Basically, we just keep our eyes and ears open, and every time someone hears about an artist who has some kind of from Hispanic background, we personally invite them, and people bring names to us saying, hey, have you heard of this painter? He lives in Turlock and he's doing some interesting work. We contact him, we tell him about our center. We just recently had our first annual Hispanic students art show, Latino student art show, and we had for our first one, we gave out cash prizes to the winners, and we hope that will continue to grow. So we're just hoping that the word gets out that here is a place for anyone from Latino Hispanic background, a place where they can come to appreciate art, learn about art, and also if they have any talent or ability, a place to exhibit their art.
Mm-hmm. Now, Manuel, I know one of the things we've talked about is how people, whether you're an artist or not, if you want to support the program, there are ways that you can help to support the center and the purposes of the center. What are some ways, if I'm sitting at home and I think, hey, this is great, are there memberships? Are there some ways that I can get involved?
Membership plan from elementary from $5 all the way to a corporate sponsor to $1,500. But then there's gallery sitting. And then that's where I come involved. Mm-hmm. But the main thing is to learn about your roots, mm-hmm. and then to network with the community. Mm-hmm. And not only that, is that the city of Stockton, and that is really giving us backing the Arts Commission, Stockton Arts Commission. Also here at Delta College, I know we've had a art auction. And then we got very full support from the Board of Trustees, Dr. Horton. Mm-hmm. And so, it's a community-involved project, and we want to expand it. And that's why we're sending out to the community to say, we're here, we're extending our hand in friendship, come join us.
And I know one of the things that we're saying is we've been talking a lot about the center. Well, we're going to go to a tape and give you a little bit of an idea of what the center looks like. And Richard, you might want to talk about, we're located 523 East Main Street here in Stockton. And let's talk a little bit about what the audience is looking at.
Yeah, currently we have a six-man show, a six-person show. And so 6 of the artists from the center have come together. There's one of my sculpture pieces there in the window. And each of us took a space inside the gallery to show our work. That's the work of Raul Mora in the background, for example. We're showing the work of Jorge Elizondo, Rodolfo Gonzalez, Beto Ramirez, Gilbert Olivas, and myself currently. This show ends about the middle of October, and then we'll be putting up our Day of the Dead show.
And I know those shows, even this show is
they're very popular.
Undated, but what it says is that we have rotational art shows at
Yes, we have
center.
ongoing shows all year round. This is the work of Gilbert Olivas, a very masterful sculptor who works in bronze and various other materials, and very interesting work that he does.
Now, if somebody's, are people able to purchase any of these
Yes,
pieces?
most of the work's for sale if you are marked not for sale. We also have a little tienda, a little museum store where we feature art and crafts from Mexico. And it's, we're hoping to expand that if things go well for us. This is a second room of our gallery, and there on the left wall some of my own work. And if we can get over that way, we can talk a little bit about it, yes. Much of my work is now paintings, and I work in many different mediums. I work in sculpture, another painting there. Often these are theme pieces. We've been very successful in having theme shows. And for example, this one, a theme about Los Niños, children, and their contribution. The painting was made specifically for that theme.
Now, one of the things I think is always a challenge is it just isn't hanging pictures on a wall, is it? I mean, when you do a presentation, it's the way that you present the art.
Yes, yes. We spend an awful lot of time, making sure that our pieces are aesthetic and the way they're hung and the way they are presented on the wall. That's a shot of some of my sculpture pieces. They're older pieces. I haven't worked in clay for a few years, but I really want to get back to it.
I tell you, and it's a great place to visit. Much larger than it looks from the outside once you get inside.
Yeah. We have two large rooms that are very ample.
And I'd just like to add too, Rogers, that the artists that show there, they're not just known here in the community or in the valley, but throughout the United States and also international. So we got very talented people that work here at Delta College.
And I think that that's the great thing, is that the people in our community and the people who do the shows at the Mexican Heritage Center come from around California, not really just in Stockton. So it's kind of exciting to see the various pieces that are displayed. Now, Richard, I want to talk before I want to go to the creative process, because you do a variety of mediums of art, from poetry to the pieces that we saw. What's the catalyst to get you to say, I am going to do a piece in this format, or I'm going to write poetry?
I think there are several catalysts. A few years back, for instance, in the mid-'80s, my wife and I often worked together on art, and we had several shows coming up. So sometimes when you have a show coming up and you know that it's 6 months away or 8 months away, I mean, you're busy working, and it's something you're doing on a daily basis. And then there are dry spells where you go 6 months, maybe even a year without creating any art at all. And it's very frustrating. You want to do it, but you just don't feel the inspiration to. In writing, it's the same kind of thing. I think the center gives us a place that, we know that we need to keep working, because there'll be upcoming shows. We need to, poetry readings are scheduled in the future, so therefore I write and make sure I have new material if I'm going to be part of that poetry reading. And so that keeps me going. The difficult part is, full-time job teaching, and you know about that. The full load there, and as an English teacher, loads of papers that I have to grade. So sometimes there's not much energy left to get back to that creativity, to the thing that I, would rather do, and that's to paint, to draw, to, create poetry.
And I think that that's a great way for us to end, and to give you a little brief introduction of the Mexican Heritage Center. When we come back after these brief public service messages, we'll be talking with two more artists about their work and more about the Mexican Heritage Center. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Visit Mickey Grove Zoo, your zoo close to home. We're open 364 days a year. Discover the Islands of Life exhibits, our walk-in aviary, and much, much more. Come get wild with us at the Mickey Grove Zoo in Lodi.
Hi, Kitty.
Hello and welcome back to Delta College Impact. I'm Roger Waller, your host for today's program. On today's show, we're talking about the Mexican Heritage Center located in downtown Stockton. On the first half of the program, you learned a little bit about the center and a little bit about Richard Rios and Manuel Payan, our guests on the first half of the program. On the second half, we're going to continue our discussion about the Mexican Heritage Center, and we're joined by two local artists, Raul Mora and Rudy Garcia. And Raul, let's begin with you and just say that your interest in art goes back a few years, but what was the catalyst that got you into art?
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I was not into sports. And my uncles, who came from Mexico, were always talking about their father who had been a santero. And they, of course, never had the opportunity to get formal education, but I remember they were construction workers, but on rainy days they would, do drawings, copy from the comics, whatever. And I think that interest, germinated and started there. And growing up in Stockton, I was very fortunate to always have teachers, even at the elementary level, who liked art, who had us do a lot of art. And I was the kid that would do the bulletin boards and do the special work for the different holidays and that type of thing. So my training actually started there. I think I was very fortunate to have a high school teacher, Mr. Ben Day, who was the person that would make sure that I had the supplies to work with. At a time when there weren't a lot of art books available in the public schools, especially with full-color reproductions, he would borrow books from other art teachers, especially from Delta College teachers, and lend them to me. Yeah. So that was my exposure.
Hey, I tell you, and that's great to see how people get started and how everybody needs that support to get going. And Rudy, I know you got going at the age of 7, so you've been doing this for a few years now. What was it that kept you into art? I mean, that's the key. Is we all take that art class at 7, but you stayed with it.
Well, one of the things that has been unusual, and I think Raul and I parallel pretty much in our lives, is that it was my father, because he created an atmosphere at the house where art and music and poetry were alive. He was a composer of corridos, folk music, and he sang. And he had bohemian friends that used to come in on Saturdays, and once in a while they'd take me with them, and I would listen to their poetry and their music. And my dad had an old-time Victrola with legs that blared Mexican music and waltzes and all kinds of stuff. So I was pretty much sensitized to the arts. And when we moved to a larger city, Phoenix, Arizona, well, actually, we went to California for vacation, and so we were late, so I had to attend school in San Bernardino for a month. And it was the first time that they had art in a classroom. And it was unusual for me to see what was going on, so I liked school from then on. So we moved back to Phoenix, this time a larger city, and they had art programs, and that's when I started drawing. And I just say 7 years old because I just found my copy of one of the children's books that I had, and in it was a drawing that I had done. So that's why I say that at that time I was drawing. But that's how come I became interested.
Oh, that's great, and it's good to see that it's something that you can do for a lifetime and not just for a few moments. Now, Raul, one of the things that we had talked about off camera was really the starting of the Mexican Heritage Center. And a lot of people sit back and say, well, what was it that got it off the ground? And you might want to give a little bit of the history of the Mexican Heritage Center.
Well, Rudy and I, and a lot of the other Artistas del Valle, which was a group of Latino artists that had gathered here from Stockton in the Valley, we're always talking about a centro cultural, okay? And I guess over the years, my wife just got really fed up, and she told me, told us either to shut up or do something about it. So she's highly organized. So she's the one that started to draft a constitution, a mission statement, and got it going. I mean, I think he and I would still be talking about our dream.
We'd always complain about there's no place to show. We're always being kicked out of one place, or we're being charged to show our work. And the exhibits and the organized art groups that are here really do not seem to not accept, but understand what we're doing as far as art, because we were a little bit, would you say, not protest art, because this was the 60s, 70s. It was mostly social commentary. And we had a little slant in our work, it was just a little different, and we felt that it was different. And I guess we just kind of set ourselves apart and wanted a place where we could work and do stuff. And we were always wishing. You know, I would see a building downtown and I says, wow, look at that. Wouldn't that make a nice this or whatever? And we always complain, we don't have a place. And this is when we were at Raul's house talking about it, like we usually sit and talk.
Now, he and I are the same age, and we have similar backgrounds, so we're always teasing ourselves about we're either ahead of the game or behind. So we were, you know, when the civil rights movement was actually going, you know, like we were already teaching. And we're talking about, you know, now as senior citizens, we're becoming more activists. But a lot of the artists, I think, especially the younger people, are a result of the civil rights movement. During that time, I think there was a tremendous renaissance with poetry, with writing, with poster making. Rupert Garcia, for instance, who's also Stocktonian. A lot of the people from the Chicano Royal Air Force in Sacramento started off as protest art because there was so much activity. And a lot of it, luckily, was very creative. So the interest in the arts, of course, I think really got going there. A lot of us are a result of that, especially some of the younger people involved with the group. And there was a need to kind of be able to show our work and do the kind of work that reflects our culture without being elitist, but simply because it's a different form of communication.
And I think that that's a great lead in, because what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at some of those art pieces and give you a chance really to talk about what we're seeing. And so Raul, you and Rudy can just walk us through what we're looking at right here.
Well, when I came back from San Francisco, you'll see a lot of the valley landscapes, and I rediscovered the valley. I had to commute to Sacramento for a total of 2 summers for 6 weeks doing graduate work, and I noticed the valley for the very first time.
And so you are showing this in the art pieces that you've put together.
In the landscapes. What these shows are many, many retrospects that we decided to have. And for instance, this one deals more with the conquest and the clash of cultures, being mestizo or Mexican, you're both European and Indian. And it was a different way of explaining how we felt about these things.
And so one of the issues is, part of the mission that you talked about is to give that venue and that opportunity for artists to show their work. Now, Rudy, as you look at this art, do you start to think back to what was the artist thinking about as they started to develop that piece? Or you look at art maybe a little differently than some of us do?
Well, I was always interested in what people do as social commentary and how they have fun. And so I did a series of night things, going to various dance halls, Mexican bars, and sketching, and coming home at night and rapidly getting my ideas down. And I wanted to show how common, ordinary people have fun and how they feel, how they hurt. And that's the kind of thing the kind of art that I pursued.
Now, do you find yourself staying with one theme, or do you find yourself staying with a theme for a while and then evolving to another approach in your art?
Well, I think for me, whenever we have theme shows at the Mexican Center, I deal with things that are primarily within my heritage, with my influence. And being a Chicano or a Mexican-American, you know, I have 1 foot in Mexico and 1 foot here. And I like to work in that area because it's just a different way for me to communicate. I don't know, Rudy, how do you feel?
Well, you know, I've always called myself a Mexicanist. In Spanish is Mexicanista, and that is taking the old Mexica word, you know, what the Aztecs called themselves. Because as I went through my teaching career, I became interested in the culture, the Nahuatl culture. So I've collected and seen a lot of books, read a lot of books, that is, and so I began to see parallels in what I do and what the people do, my beliefs, traditions that my family gave me. And I couldn't see myself doing anything else but the art that was felt by the Mexican American, the Chicano, the indigenous people in Mexico. And anytime that I did anything that was current, it seems like Mexico always just kind of seeped in, either in the colors, the forms, the symbolism which you find in my work.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point when you say the colors, that in your mind you have the colors really represent something, and I think that that's a great way as you start to look at pieces of art. Now, one thing I should also mention is that Raul and Rudy are both members of the adjunct faculty here at Delta College, so you can get a sense of them in the classroom as well. And Raul, as you think about translating what you do and your experience to other students, how do you do that in an art class? Because I would think art is so unique, and yet there is a basis and a fine line that connects everyone.
Well, I know, I truly feel that everyone has a creative ability. I mean, there's so much about, you know, people with special talent, or you're born an artist. And I feel that you can learn about art the way that you can learn to read and do math. I think if you're given the opportunity, and when you travel through China, through India, through Mexico, through third world countries, where you have to survive in some creative form, I mean, that's where the folk art, the crafts are just tremendous. And, you know, they learn through osmosis, through need, through seeing their elders work and their helpers. And so to me, I mean, that's something that I feel here in this country we can also do. And we should nurture, because there's a lot of creativity that isn't being developed.
Yeah. And I think that you hear that excitement and you hear that sense of what can be developed in the classroom and really put onto a canvas or into a piece of art or into a piece of poetry. And I think that's one of the things that you can also see at the Mexican Heritage Center. So one of the things I know we talked a little bit about is how to get in contact with the Mexican Heritage Center. They're located at 523 East Main Street here in Stockton. You can write them at zip code 95202, or you can call them at area code 209-932-0511. That's the Mexican Heritage Center here in Stockton. And I want to thank Raul and Rudy for joining us today and really giving you a sense of the center. And the real challenge will be to get out there and take a look at it yourself. Thank you for coming, and it's a good way to get involved in Stockton. Thanks for watching Impact. We'll look forward to seeing you at a future program.